Welcome to this episode, part 3 of The Man from Edom. I am your host, Craig Winn, and this is the YAHOWAH blog. As we concluded our last program on this misunderstood topic, because my best guess is that there's not 1 in a million people who are familiar with the man from Edom. And so we're going to commence where we left off on our last episode. Suffice it to say that Yeshaya, Isaiah, the great prophet of whose scroll we have dating back to the 3rd century BCE, the entirety of it spoke about a man who will come from Edom and that he is going to save Israel. Now, why isn't that known? Why isn't there any rabbi who is talking about it, any Christian that is talking about it, any Muslim that is talking about it? They allegedly claim this book for themselves, you know. Why is it that Yeshaya, the most prolific of all of the prophets, could tell us that a man will emerge out of Edom at this time and that he will literally save Israel? In fact, save the planet. And yet there's absolutely no discussion whatsoever about him. Well, we're going to try to resolve that problem and bring this to your attention because the man from Edom has been revealed. And he is prepared to lay down his life to protect Israel. Our king, as we know, opened the door to life by fulfilling Passover, literally laying down the life of his physical body, his bashar, to open the door to Yahweh's home, to life, inviting his people to walk through and capitalize on what he had achieved on their behalf. And he was prolific in telling us he was going to do so. Unfortunately, even 3,000 years after Dowd volunteered for this mission, describing what he was going to do in his Psalms around 1000 BCE, and 2,700 years after Yeshaya, the great prophet, brought this to our attention. And nearly 2,000 years after David honored his promises in 33 CE to do exactly as he had committed, until I discovered what I think is the most profoundly important find in human history, that Dowd fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Makurim. There was not a single person, not a single Yehud Jew that recognized what had been promised or knew when it had been fulfilled, by whom, why, or how they might benefit. And therefore, the purpose of the Towrah of God's final Zeroah, the Nakar, and as we will learn, this man from Edom, is to equip him such that he is able not only to put the pieces of this story together from beginning to end, and to date every element of it along the way and identify who the participants would be, but to share all of this with the world, focusing on Yisrael and Yehudim, so that God's people might pass from death into life at a time when the whole world is trying to kill them, from estrangement to reconciliation, from earth to heaven. The text of the great prophet reads, "Let nothing stop you from choosing to actually pass through the door. Of your own free will, prepare the way for the people." Do you know what word is used to speak of Let nothing stop you from choosing to actually pass through the way. Been written like this for 2,700 years. It's rather important since this is the doorway to life. And the insistence of Yahweh speaking through his prophet is to let nothing stop you from going through it. What do you think is the verb? How is it written? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. It's a bar. And a bar is not written just once, it's written twice, which means that this is the exponential understanding and implementation of this concept. You really, really must, and of your own volition, walk through this door. If you do not walk through this door, well, then you're going to regret it. A bar, a bar. And why do you think I brought a bar to your attention? Do you know any other place where a bar is used? I do. It identifies the nature of the door. A bar is actually the verbal root of Pesach, Passover. Let nothing stop you from choosing to actually pass through Passover's door, the door to life. Of your own free will, prepare the way, Panah Derek, before the appearance. Whose appearance? The guy that opened the door for you. Turn around, change direction, pay attention on behalf of the people. You should be resolute in your determination to build up and cherish the Masilah. The Masilah. We've been doing this for a long time. Those of you who have been with me during this period, some as long as 17 and 18 of the 23 and a half, nearly 24 years that I have been about this mission on behalf of Yahweh and his people. Do you know what we're being asked to be resolute about in building up and valuing, cherishing, extolling the virtues of? It's written in the call imperative, just like the previous statement, which means second person volition. You should really choose. This should be essential to what you want. Call means to interpret this literally. The word is Masilah. We find Masilah in one of the most important prophecies in Yeshaya because it was one that was ripped off by Christianity to justify the mythology associated with John wasn't the Baptist. Of course, there were no Baptists in Israel in the first century. The whole concept is ludicrous. But to create the myth of John the Baptist, they misquoted not this one, but the other reference to a Masilah. A Masilah is a raised highway. It is a main road. It is a thoroughfare. It is an elevated walkway. It's a way to conduct one's life. And in this case, it is the walkway that leads to that door. It's the walkway that leads to the door to Yahweh's home, to Shamayim, to heaven, to life eternal. This is the answer. It is what everyone says they're seeking. To be in God's company, to be saved, to be immortal, to enter heaven. And here, someone is being asked to be resolute in their determination to build up and cherish, to extol the virtues of the Masilah, this raised highway that is being presented in association with this door attributable to Passover that you're being encouraged to walk through. Toss away and remove the stumbling stones. Now, what do you think they could be? Why would the prophet speak of them? Well, the answer is actually quite clear. It is one of, if not my primary jobs. I was trying to point the way to the light that my wife forgot to turn on as she set up the studio today, which is why I was pointing to that. But now she has done it, and we're now fully illuminated. Wookie really looks best in a full and beautiful light. Don't you think so, Wookie? Say hello to the people out there. Okay, thank you. Wookie says, no, I've got things to be doing. He has got this too. Whoop. Excuse me. Thank you, Wookie. To render moot. He is trying to show you what would happen to a Muslim who would come and try to do us harm. Wookie is resolute in his determination. Right, Wook? Okay. So what are we talking about, Wook? Oh, yes, I remember. The stumbling blocks. What are the stumbling blocks? So while Wookie has his job, I also have mine. And my job is to remove all of the religious rubbish that has been piled on top of the truth. Now, that's a fairly interesting mission, isn't it? And it happens to be the mission also of Yeshayah, Isaiah. He began with the first 10 chapters of his prophetic testimony being devoted to a single thing, which was removing all of the religious rubbish that was pervasive among his people. All of Yahweh's prophets, beginning with Moshe, made as their single greatest priority, even more important than sharing the guidance that would lead to this doorway, they were most focused on removing the religious rubbish, denouncing Israel's propensity to be religious. And it is those obstacles, those stumbling stones, the ones put there by the rabbis who created all three Abrahamic religions. You see, while Abraham didn't have a religion, the rabbis had one, and it was the rabbis who created Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I'm not kidding in that regard. Rabbis actually created Christianity before they created Judaism. Yep, you see, it was a rabbi who had the overall knowledge and cleverness to know how to misrepresent the Tanakh, the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, in such a way that they could create a counterfeit of Dowd. Kill Dowd, bury him, do away with him, and then rob everything that pertains to Dowd to create a crude counterfeit of him through replacement philology. To do so back in the day without a search engine, without a concordance, just by memory, required the training that was attributable to the rabbis who did it because they were so clever. They wanted to write Yahweh out of their lives and write themselves into a controlling position. And the ultimate manipulator was the first man actually to call himself a rabbi in writing. Do you know that? Paul. Christianity, Shaul. The very person that Yahweh 666 years prior to him writing his first letter, that to the Galatians, which was the first written text in Christianity, all of Paul's 14 letters preceded any one of the Gospels, told us that Shaul was the plague of death and details all that he would bring to the detriment of God's people. That was the first acknowledged rabbi. He created Christianity based on ripping off everything Yahweh had to say about his beloved son, David, the actual Messiah and Son of God. The second's Rabbi Akiba. That scum, rather than eliminating the threat of Christianity by pointing out that David had systematically explained exactly what he was going to do, when he was going to do it, to the exact day, 600 years in advance, and depicting the exact method to which he was going to serve as the Passover lamb, describing crucifixion 5 centuries before Rome existed and that form of torture existed, documented in the 22nd Mizmor. And Yeshayah in the 9th chapter and again in the 53rd explained exactly what was going to transpire. Rather than acknowledge these things and point out that the Christian counterfeit wasn't worth the papyrus the myth was written on, they decided to fight a lie with a lie. And this Rabbi, Akiba, the founder of Rabbinic Judaism, foisted another false Messiah on the people, and they still masquerade under and parade around under his sign. Bar Kokhba means son of a star. That's where Judaism's and Israel's star comes from. David didn't have one. Oh, and that third religion, Islam. You see, the Babylonian Talmud followed. It was written around 500 CE. They claim, of course, that it is the oral Torah that was given to the elders at the time of Moshe, but it's all attributed to rabbis who lived during the period, of course. And when Muhammad moved into Yathrib, which was the largest Jewish community in Arabia at the time, nearest Babylon, Muhammad ran out of material. And rabbis, ever eager to make a buck, sold Muhammad Talmud recitals. The Quran is actually nothing more, in fact, the religiosity of the Quran is nothing more than twisted versions of Talmud stories that Muhammad sold, or that Muhammad bought from the rabbis. Had Muhammad not bought them, had the rabbis not sold them, there would have been no Islam. Islam at that point was nothing but a criminal enterprise. It was a bunch of terrorists plundering, raping, enslaving their neighbors. There was no religious aspect to it. And yet the rabbis gave Muhammad and Allah the means to turn a criminal enterprise into a religion. They created all three religions. That's the muck that I have to clear away. Because until I clear away that muck, the rubbish that the rabbis have strewn on the path to God through Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the truth is hard to see. The lies are so pervasive. Like there's almost 3 billion Christians, almost 2 billion Muslims. And while Jews deem and Orthodox and Reformed and other forms of Judaism are small among the nations, they are large among the Jewish people. And so this is the rubbish that I've been tasked to remove from this raised highway that I've been tasked with building from you to the door that Dode opened, called Passover, the doorway to life, to hope, to heaven. Lift up the banner is the next line. If you didn't already know, this banner, it's a nesh in Hebrew. It's a sign conveying vital information. It's a symbol for to call people to action, to call them home, to signal a warning. That nesh is in these books behind me. That nesh is part of the YAHOWAH blog that we're sharing with you. Should you not have heard more than this one blog, if this is the first time that you've heard the YAHOWAH blog, you may not be aware that YAHOWAH introduced the concept of this nesh to his people through the same prophet Yeshayah, devoting the entire 11th chapter to it. The nesh is the product of the choter. The choter is the sucker growing out of the fallen rootstock and stump of Yisrael. And he is the one that is imbued with the 7 spirits of YAHOWAH, so that he would be uniquely wise in understanding God's message to his people, that he would have the understanding to pull it all together, that he would be the first to see the entire story from beginning to end and be the one person bold enough, capable enough, courageous enough, compassionate enough to look you in the eye and tell you what you need to know. That is the Nesh. Yahweh inspired me to write it and to share it with you. And it is the means not only to build this raised highway, it is the means not only to clear it of the religious rubble, it is the means to direct your attention to it. That is the purpose of what we're doing. Lift up the banner for the people. So once again, there is as we consider all these words, there's a lot to unpack in this prophetic pronouncement. It begins with a sense of real urgency from someone who knows the situation all too well. Yes, it was indeed Yahshua, the great prophet himself, who was in heaven at Yahweh's behest and saw heaven's door opened once before, some 2,700 years ago. It's one of the most dramatic episodes in the entirety of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And when it was opened, he broke down in tears. Do you know why? There wasn't a single Yehud, not a single Yisraelite waiting outside. Not one. He had devoted himself to sharing God's message more completely, more eloquently than anyone else. He may have been the last person to see the entire picture from beginning to end. He may have been the most effective prophet relative to excoriating the Jewish propensity to be religious, while at the same time delineating how the path home would be laid out. He is the ultimate prophet when it comes to writing the textbook on how to be a choter, how to perform as the Nakar, how to do the job of the Adama Parah, enabling the man from Edom to perform as God has foretold. And so when he says, you need to walk through this door without delay, now just 8.5 years before that door will be closed for all time, 2,700 years after he saw no one standing outside, he knows what he's talking about. You should listen to him. The second part of Yahshaya's appeal is an ode to something he wrote. In the 40th chapter of Isaiah, he therefore knows that the Nesh banner is associated with the Choter in Yahshua 11, and the cold voice of Yahweh conveyed in the passage I'm going to share with you, same individual. God provided this man, Yada, with some 30 different titles, all descriptive of the job that he wants him to accomplish on behalf of his people. And there are many, many hundreds of prophecies regarding this role. My preference would be to have none. I loved being anonymous and sharing what I had learned. But that won't work. It's not enough to garner Israel's attention and to accomplish the mission, which is to go from none to many in a very short period of time. When I began this mission in the fall of 2001, immediately after 9/11, on a Towrah, there wasn't a single person who knew Yahweh's name or understood anything that I'm sharing with you. That door that had been opened was completely unknown. The Nesh was unwritten. The raised highway did not exist. And over the ensuing 23.5 years, we've made a great deal of progress, but we're not nearly to the point of having accomplished the mission. And so this is Yahweh's means to awaken his people who have been estranged from him for a very long time. Anyway, I want to share that prophecy with you. It says, choose to change your thinking. Well, that is the mission, isn't it? Yisrael. Choose to change your thinking and relent, and you'll be comforted and consoled. My people, promises your God. Speak from the heart, exercising good judgment regarding Jerusalem, the source of guidance on reconciliations. Make a kara, an announcement, summoning her by reciting to her that indeed her battles will be over. The consequence of her missing the way will be pardoned through restitution, causing her to be accepted and regaining favor at long last, because she has obtained from the hand of Yahweh a double portion for all of her errant and mistaken ways. A voice, a coal, calls out in the wilderness where the word is questioned, saying, turn around and choose to change your direction in life such that you are prepared for the derek, the way of Yahweh. Yahweh has a way. It is through the Moed Mikre, and it begins with that doorway of Pesach, Passover, and across the cleansing threshold of matzah, leading into the home and family of Bokurim, such that we are enriched and empowered on Shabuah, proclaiming the message of the herald on Towrah, announcing that Dod, the Messiah, and Yahweh will return on Kippurim to reconcile their relationship with Yisrael so that we can all camp out together on Sukkah. A voice, a coal, calls out in this wilderness where the word is questioned, saying, turn around and choose to change your direction in life so that you are prepared for the way of Yahweh. Not the way of Hashem, not the way of Adonai, not the way of the Lord, not the way of the mythical Jesus Christ, not the way of Allah. Blah. The way of Yahweh, the God whose name you erased. You won't be able to find the way of Yahweh if you keep on erasing his name and eliminating him from your life. The longer you continue to do that, the further you will be from him. This is the way of Yahweh. Of your own free will, choose to become straightforward and correct so that you are prepared for, because if you're not prepared for the Mas'illah, this raised highway, this elevated walkway, is of no value to you. It's not going to be a stampede. God's not going to drag you kicking and screaming like he did during the Exodus. You need to be prepared for this. You can't enter through the door unless you know the conditions that must be met prior to entry. And one of them is to know Yahweh's name, to know that his son, our Messiah Dod, opened that door. Of your own free will, choose to become straightforward and correct so that you are prepared for Mas'illah, the raised highway through the dark and lightless fabric of commingling and mixing together to approach your God. You know where that raised highway leads? Prophetic. Who are the people trying to destroy Israel right now? What is their nationality? Where did they come from? You know, there's no such thing as a Palestinian. So the people in Gaza, the people that are in Judea and Samaria, Those in Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, what nationality are they? What place on earth did they come from as they tried to occupy Israel and exterminate Jews? Oh, Arabia. Guess what this word is? Arabah. The raised highway cuts right through this flood of incoming Arab Muslims, takes you above them, beyond them, past them, through them, unto Yahweh Almighty. I thought you'd want to know. The next time you might be looking for a handout, a savior, as Muslims flood back into Israel. Remember, I told you so. Every depression will be raised, and each elevated place of illicit worship will be brought down, and that would include those two ugly scars on the Temple Mount. They will be eliminated, as well as every church, mosque, and synagogue, not only in Jerusalem, not only in Judea, not only in Israel, not only in the Middle East, throughout the entire world. Then it will transpire that the insidiously deceitful aspects of that which is not on the level, that which is misappropriated and misconstrued, speaking of religion and politics, militarism, a kolb. It's a little bit of a check there, because a kolb is written very similar to the name of the person that became the father of Yisrael. Maybe you know that name, Jacob. Yeah. So he is just saying that Jacob has not been on the level, has misappropriated and misconstrued everything pursuant to that raised highway, to that door that is opened to life, that cuts you right through the flood of Muslim Arabs who want to take it from you. It will all be removed. It will all be flattened over, such that the uneven terrain, these obstacles and conspiracies which made the way impassable, will be ripped apart and torn asunder. Remember the obstacles that it was the job of the man from Edom to remove? These are the ones. They are the obstacles of conspiracies which had made the way impassable. You know what the most debilitating conspiracy is now relative to Yahweh's people? That Allah is a God, that the Quran is an inspired book, that Muhammad was a prophet. You know the second most diabolical conspiracy affecting the Jewish people over the 1900 years? That Paul, Shaul, spoke for God, and that the Christian New Testament is a divine book, that Jesus actually existed. How about another conspiracy, that Dode had a star, and that the star that is emblazoned over the Jewish state and over their religious documentation can be credited to the former king, as opposed to the false Messiah, Bar Kokhba? How about that one? Well, they're going to all be ripped apart. I've done my share. I've written 13 books focused just on ripping apart and tearing asunder the religious myths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There are 5 volumes of goddamn religion proving that Islam is a death cult, and that Allah created it for the express purpose of perpetrating genocide against all humankind, and that Christianity is nothing more than a fable conceived by robbing God's beloved son and Messiah, Dode, of his ever achievements and accolades. And that Judaism, rabbinical Judaism, exists to fight that lie with another false Messiah. I've done my part. No one in human history has ever done this, by the way. So, you want to know my qualifications? Read them. No one in all of human history has written 5 volumes to reorder the Quran chronologically, set it into the context of Muhammad's life, and to prove that Islam is little more than Satan's attempt to perpetrate human genocide. No one has written 5 volumes to prove emphatically, using the Christian New Testament and setting it alongside Yahweh's own testimony, to prove that it is nothing but a crude counterfeit. And at the same time, demonstrated that the one who was counterfeited, the actual Messiah and Son of God, is David. No one in all of human history has done that until now. And no one has disproven the book of Ezekiel that the rabbis so dearly love, demonstrating that it is Satan's autobiography and playbook. But I've done all those things, while at the same time translating in amplified form Yahweh's testimony from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and explaining it, making it relevant to you today, putting the whole picture together for you from beginning to end, reintroducing Yahweh's name to you. No one has ever done that in all of human history. So who do you think is this one that Yahweh said is the voice calling out in this wilderness, particularly cutting through the myth of those Arabs that want to destroy you, Israel, that knows who opened that door to life? Yeah, my wife knows. She's had to endure the fact that over the 7.5 years we've been together, I have devoted essentially every waking hour to pursuing what Yahweh once achieved with his people. This continues. The overall significance of Yahweh. Do you hear that name, Israel? Do you hear that name, Christians? Do you hear that name, Muslims? That's the actual name of God, Yahweh. It is easily pronounced. Take Torah, for example. It explains how to pronounce the Hey and the Wah, which represent 3 of the 4 letters. Yisrael would explain how to pronounce the Y. So would Haya, the verb that Yahweh told you was the basis of his name. Don't you believe him? Until you come to know, appreciate, acknowledge, and pronounce Yahweh's name, Yisrael, you have no hope of salvation. Those Muslims that raised highway cuts through and above, leading to the doorway of life, you are forbidden to pass until you come to know, love the magnificence of Yahweh's name, the very name that you wrote out of your lives. The overall significance of Yahweh will be revealed, and it was not revealed until I began writing these books under the name Yada Yahowah, to know Yahweh. This is the Yahweh blog. It is central to what I'm sharing with you. The revelation of Yahweh's name, making it more openly known, Galah. And every Bashar, proclamation of the human herald. Guess who the Bashar is? Same fellow. Yeah. Yada is the Bashar. He is the human herald. He is the one proclaiming what can be known about Yahweh and Dod, about this raised highway. He is the Kol, voice of Yahweh. He is the Nakar, the observant foreigner. He is the Zeroah, the one cultivating the final harvest. He is the man from Edom. He is the Adamah Parah, the bloody red man of the earth who is productive and fruitful, serving as the final sacrificial bull. He is all of these things. He is the choder. He is that new growth emerging from the old stump of the fallen tree that is Yisrael. And every Bashar proclamation of the human herald, the very voice of Yahweh, will reveal this all together in its entirety. This is reliable because the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it. I want you to look very closely, Israel. For the next 8.5 years, this is the mouth of Yahweh. Now, if you think he should have found a better one, then you need to think through the realization that there were no other options. There wasn't a single one of you willing to listen to him. And until you listen to him, you can't speak for him. So just as it has been true over the last 23.5 years, it will be true over the next 8.5 years. I am the mouth of Yahweh. I am the Kol voice of God. I am the Bashar herald. And you can be obstinate all you want. You can be conceited all you want. You can continue to be recalcitrant and embittered. You can continue to erase Yahweh's name. You can pretend that you're enlightened. You can pretend all of this if you want to. But you're going to be in exactly the same position. You've tried the same approach, Israel, for 3,450 years. You told God to go away and shut up and never speak to you again. Well, he complied, and you got me. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What happened when you told God to go away and to shut up? Well, I know what happened. The Egyptians happened. The Babylonians happened. The Assyrians happened. The Macedonians happened. The Imperial Romans happened 3 times. Still didn't learn the lesson. Then it was the Muslims. After the Muslims, it was the Ottoman Muslims. After them was the Crusaders, and then the Ottoman Muslims again. And then the Holy Roman Empire. And then while you were in the diaspora in Europe, Christianity turned against you and subjugated and humiliated you. All the while, the rabbis made it worse, not better. All the while. And then it was after the Holy Roman Empire throughout anti-Semitic Europe, it was the Nazis. And now after the Nazis, it's the Muslims again. And this time they're aided and abetted by 1 billion progressives. And still you lash out at symptoms, and still you won't acknowledge your God's name. You said God's going to protect us, but you won't even write his name. You won't say his name. You don't know him. And in your present state, he does not know you. You are the stumbling block. A Kol voice urges Kara, read and recite, choosing to be called out and welcomed. Before I continue, I want to go back to the beginning of this because it is something you really need to process, Israel. This is life and death for you. This is continued existence or extermination. Choose to change your thinking and relent, and you will be comforted and consoled, people. My people, promises your God, speak from the heart, exercising good judgment regarding Jerusalem, the source of guidance on reconciliation, and yet you don't even have the courage to remove the goddamn boils, those scars on top of the mount that Dode, your king, acquired. That was the home of Yahweh's name, and you let those scars, those trophies to your defeat, remain and inspire the very Arab Muslims that are trying to perpetrate genocide on you. What's wrong with you? Can't you exercise some good judgment regarding Jerusalem? What did Yahweh tell? Don't allow the religious and political ways of the Goyim to inflict you, to live among you. And you want to be loved so much, you incorporate the Muslims into the very fabric of your country while they plot to kill you. I mean, this is tough. Love Israel. And I understand there are a lot of Jews out there that just immediately shut down the moment that someone criticizes them, or the moment someone speaks ill of the religion that has made their lives so miserable. But you're running out of time, and you continue to make the same bad choices. Make a kara, an announcement summoning her, reciting to her that indeed her battles can be over. The consequence of her missing the way can be pardoned through restitution, causing her to be accepted, regaining favor. This happens in two ways. One is you can walk through that door that Dode, the Messiah and King, opened to life on Pesach. Avail yourself of matzah, where he took the fungus of religion and politics and removed it and carried your guilt into Sheol, never to be seen again, so that you could be perfect and cross that threshold through the door into Yahweh's family and be part of Bakurim, the firstborn children, such that here now in less than 14 months, you can be part of the Shabuah harvest and leave this troubled planet at the onset of the time of Yaakov's troubles and spend your eternity with Yahweh in Shamayim. That is what the announcement is all about. Kara serves as the very verbal explanation. It's the actionable root of Mikra, these very days that we are highlighting. And so that is one of the two forms of restitution. You know what the other is? Me. If you think that I'm being presumptuous and saying that I am these things, the voice of Yahweh, the mouth of Yahweh at this time, I got something to tell you. It is my job to lay down my life for you, just as Dode laid down his Bashar. As Dode's Bashar, I will lay down my life for you on Towrah, so that I perfect and prepare you for Yahweh's return. And I'm doing that for the final remnant of Yisrael. Yeah, I've got some skin in the game. I've earned my right. I've been true to the calling. I answered when Yahweh asked. I listened to him. And now I speak for him. And should you want to know why a Jew wasn't chosen, beside the fact that there were none who were willing to listen, why don't you tell me how many Jews speak on behalf of Yahweh today? Now, the answer to that would be none, apart from those who have learned his name through me. The consequence of her mercying the way will be pardoned through restitution, causing her to be accepted and regain favor. That is the purpose of the Adamah Parah, because she has obtained from the hand of Yahweh a double portion for all of her errant and mistaken ways. Yisrael, you have been religious for 3,400 years. It's time to stop the madness. It continues to work against you. It leads you away from God. A cold voice, he calls out in the wilderness where the word is questioned. Turn around. Choose to change your direction in life so that you can be prepared for the way of Yahowah. Not the way of the rabbis, not the way of Judaism, not the way of the Likud, not the way of Lapid and the opposition. The way of Yahowah. That way runs right up the ridge line, by the way, where the signs are posted along the way. You may have heard of them. They're called Zion. You may have heard of that ridge line. It's called Moriah. You may know of what happened on the top of it, which is where Abraham and Yishak performed the dress rehearsal for Passover and where Dod fulfilled its promise. It's that same place you've allowed to be scarred with that Muslim trash. Of your own free will. By the way, Israel, what do you have to lose? Since I can prove everything that I'm claiming, everything, why don't you take me up on this dare? Tear down the Dome of the Rock and Alaska Mosque and see how God smiles upon you. Notice that for the first time in a long time, that you're going to get the ultimate attaboy. Those are my kids. That's why I chose them. Do it for yourselves. Do it for your God. Do it for your Messiah. If you don't, I will. The cold voice calls out in the wilderness where the word is questioned. Turn around and choose to change your direction, such that you are prepared for the way of Yahowah. Of your own free will, choose to become straightforward. Learn what it means to be correct and right, so that you are prepared for the Mesilah, the raised highway, this elevated walkway through the dark and lifeless fabric of Arabs, this commingling and mixing together of darkness and doom, and walking along that pathway to approach Yahweh your God, leaving all of the religious muck behind, leaving death behind. Every depression is going to be raised, and each of the elevated places of illicit worship will be brought down. Then it will transpire that the insidiously deceitful aspects of that which was not on the level and that which was misappropriated and misconstrued will be removed and flattened over, such that the uneven terrain and all of the obstacles, the conspiracies which had made the way impassable, will be ripped apart and torn asunder. The overall significance of Yahowah, the overall significance, the kabod of Yahowah will be revealed, is being revealed, will be more openly known, is being more openly known. Galah. And every Bashar proclamation of this human herald will reveal this all together in its entirety. This is reliable because the mouth of Yahowah has spoken it. A call, a voice, urges Kara, reading and reciting, choosing to be called out and meet and be welcomed. The very basis of the 7 Moed Mikre. Sadly, disgustingly, you just celebrated Purim. Purim is nothing but a bunch of religious trash pulled out of a book that has absolutely no credibility, that's filled with nothing but lies. Esther and the whole myth of Purim is religious trash, nothing but an irritant to God. And when you celebrate Pesach, you're going to turn it into a 7-day event, and you're going to pass right over matzah, which is the central part of it. From God's perspective, it is chag matzah, of which Passover is the first day, and you won't even acknowledge Bikurim. Until you come to know, to understand, to appreciate, and benefit from these Moed Mikre, the Kara, you're going to be on the wrong side of that door, not even looking in. So I asked, what should I recite? Who should I invite to be called out? Who should I welcome such that I offer to read aloud and make this announcement? The answer, the entirety of the Bashar Herald, the proclamation of the Herald, providing a place to dwell, which is entirely loving, providing all of the benefits of the relationship, akin to a gleaming flower, blossoming and shining, productive and flourishing, while spreading across the entire open terrain. A return to Eden. This dwelling place, he will be gone for a while. The blossoming and gleaming flower, he will be treated with contempt at this moment, because truly, the Ruach spirit of Yahowah, she blows like the wind, dispersing and driving forcefully away through him. What he's speaking about here is the Bashar Herald isn't going to be here the entire 8.5 years that remain between now and the time that Dog returns with Yahowah. I'm not only conducting the Shabbat harvest, I will be part of it. I don't know how long I will be gone. I know for certain that I will be meeting with Elia on the Temple Mount in 2030, 3.5 years into the time of Jacob's troubles, 3.5 years from its end. But whether or not I get to return, I'm not certain. It appears that I will be able to return to try to get your attention prior to that time. But I won't dwell here forever. Not in continuity with the 8.5 years that remain. While I'm pointing the way to a place that is entirely loving, akin to this beautiful blossoming flower, a place where you can flourish, because I recognize that the Mikra take us through the doorway that leads back to Eden. Yahweh is inviting us back into the garden. That is the flourishing nature of this wonderful garden that is spreading across all of the earth. But this physical dwelling place will be gone for a period of time, and the blossoming and gleaming flower will be treated with contempt at that moment, because truly, the Ruach spirit of Yahowah, she blows like the wind, dispersing and driving away forcefully through him. This same individual Yahowah inspired Yeshayah to write about in his 11th chapter is the Choder, which is, he is unique among all people, and that he has the 7 spirits of Yahowah in him. And so when he's gone, rather than communicating through him, the spirit of Yahowah is going to drive many people away. There will be that time. And so all I can do is encourage you, if you are anyone, whether you're Goyim or Israelite, to listen and respond now, because it's going to get really, really rough out there. Insightfully, the abode and dwelling place is for the family, because the word of our God stands forever. And this is true. What I'm trying to invite you to is to go through that door of life and across the threshold of matzah, bikurim, Pesach Bakodim, or Pesach Matzah Bakodim, so that by Bakodim you can be part of Yahweh's family. This is what I'm inviting you to capitalize upon. This is what Dode fulfilled to make all of this possible for you. And all of it is found through the word of our God. And it will endure forever. But it isn't for everyone. On average, fewer than 1 in a million people are going to be allowed up that walkway and through that door. I want you to be among them. But when we read that the Spirit drives forcefully away, that means that 999,999 individuals will be driven away from that walkway, away from that door. To approach it, you have to be prepared for it, which is why this prophecy in Yashaya, Isaiah 41-8 was written this way. You will either have Yahweh's Spirit escorting you along the way or blowing you out of the way. It's a good place for us to stop, and we will recommence the story of the Adamah Parah as we continue to work our way through the great prophet's presentation of why it is this man from Edom who will be the final savior of Yisrael. I thank you for listening.